My name is Nick Capone, and this is Cultural Catholicism, an exploration into the existence and significance of the Catholic faith within the culture. I wanted to briefly share, uh, just as an introduction, um, what this is and why I'm doing it and what my hopes are for it. So, going back, first, I'd like to say that I do recognize that the desire to start a podcast burns like a raging fire in the heart of every young man under the age of 35. In recognizing that, I would just like to point out that I have been discerning this for quite a few years, and that makes it feel more authentic to me. Anyways, the goal of the show is simple. This is just a passion project of mine, um, and it's really because I enjoy learning. So let me explain. The the goal is to speak with Catholics who are subject matter experts across um, all industries, um, professions, and all areas of the culture in order to um, hear their stories, understand how the faith is lived out by them in that thing, and also how that thing may be um, inherently Catholic or contain the virtues of the faith. So going back to the start, in my early 20s, this was before COVID, um, BC. Yeah, that's funny. Um, I was teaching a youth ministry class at my home parish, um, back in Ohio, and I probably was not qualified to really do that, technically speaking. Um, but I really did have a desire with the group of high schoolers I was working with to help them to come to know Christ in His church as I did, and to love it like I do. At that time, I was also coming into a more adult understanding of the faith, and a discovery of myself, which I think is typical in your early 20s, and getting to see how absolutely beautiful the Catholic faith is, how masculine it can be. I had just read um, the Consecration of Saint Joseph book at that time, and so I was getting to see a whole new side of that saint, and um, falling more in love with the Rosary. It was a beautiful time, um, and the students that they were great, great young men and women who I was meeting with every week, but they just most of them couldn't have been more apathetic. And there's a lot of, I think, issues that led up to that. But you can tell that they view the faith as the faith of like an old granny. Catholic faith was archaic to them, boring, unalive, and and certainly not an adventure. And I think that is the key in all of this. That's a great way to say it. Is that I was learning how it is the great adventure, and I could not convince them of that swiftly enough. What progress I felt like I was even making with them crumbled when COVID did hit. Excuse me, and we had stopped meeting. So it felt like any progress I was making was lost. At the time, a guy who would go on to be my best man in my wedding, Bobby, he was also teaching the class with me, and we just had incredible conversations, the two of us, and you could tell when he and I would get going that the students would actually start to pay a little bit more attention, and that continued to grow and foster, and I think he and I continue to help each other grow in the faith and to see the depths of Catholicism and kind of just like iron sharpening iron. And this led me to, you know, start to bring up as a joke to him, we should start a podcast. We should start talking, like share these conversations. They're always so fruitful. And it was a joke for a few years until it started to not become a joke in my heart because I was just the idea of, maybe as a way to reconcile what I felt like was the failure with the students, and realizing, well, obviously also podcasting has been absolutely booming and is now incredibly oversaturated in the last 5 years or so. And it probably was around COVID that I think it really did grow in a lot of ways because everybody was consuming content constantly. And, also being a young Catholic man, Pints with Aquinas with Matt Fradd was also hitting its prime, and a lot of the conversations on there were very inspiring and showing me even more, you know, corners of the faith that I had never thought about or never experienced. I got into poetry. So I mean, just unlocking new types of beauty, the beauty of language. You get the idea. So as I'm discovering the faith in all these nooks and crannies of my life and all these things that I enjoyed, you know, even a few years ago, right before my first son was born, discovering pipe smoking and what that did for my faith, and um, that felt Catholic, and I couldn't exactly figure out how an act like that, or a hobby like that, or an interest like that was Catholic because in its it's not, obviously it's not, the incense in a mass, but there's something deeper there. I could feel something deeper. And I started to explore that, have, research that, have conversations about that. This is unfolding like an onion. The faith is just, it's everywhere around me. And it's like a fog started to sort of clear. Now, I don't know much about much, but this intrigued me and it made me want to learn more. So fast forward, and it really did start to feel like a calling from the Lord. As silly as that might sound for a podcast, given how everybody does them, but nonetheless, the call continued, and what was important to me was not to pursue this if I just wanted to hear the sound of my own voice, which I in fact do not. Um, and so that's humbling. But it was to actually, just the hope of it is to help others to fall more in love with the faith, and in a sense, like to go back to those young men and women, and to show them through the conversations that I'll be having on all different topics how the things that they love already, that they don't connect with Catholicism, that those things are Catholic, or that they are Catholic adjacent, or they have the virtues of the faith, or the transcendentals are there, and that they have sort of that they could share in the journey that I experienced, where you just are like discovering it all around you and becoming overwhelmed by how awesome it is. So it's been um it's been really fun to dive into, and I'm excited for all the conversations I have had, I'm going to have, that I hope to have, um because I the Lord's provided a great initial group of people who are willing to chat with me on various subjects. So you I hope it's fruitful, um, and I feel very humbled that even I myself get to speak with a lot of these individuals. So, um, hopes for the future as it grows. There's there's just a few. I would say some platforms like Spotify for podcasters, they can have a feature where listeners can submit questions or requests, something like that. What I'd like, what would be great is eventually that there's enough people listening that they can submit things that they like, and it could be something like as simple as, soccer or sports, running. I don't know why I'm on a sport kick. It could it could be other things too. Cigars, um, cars. You could go deeper. It could be music. It could be language. Um, Basically, woodworking, watches. Like you think of it, I'd love to explore it and find the faith in that thing for you and for me, for all of us, because it is there. And that would be, I think, a great place to be at is receiving requests one way or another, um, and then I get to go and discover this, um, for for the greater good. The only other hope that I can think of off the top of my head for the future is just to grow community around this to some degree, um, so that it can continue to be like my best man and I, like iron sharpening iron, and any support that can be given is deeply appreciated, not taken for granted. I don't, in this initial stages, I have a locals uh, page where you can go to support this. Um, I certainly don't deserve any support, um, and I haven't really earned it yet, but it would help uh, because I do, you know, it does. This does take time away from my wife and children, and to justify that, for it not to be a financially a net negative. Any support is helpful, but if you also can't afford to do that, you don't want to, totally understand. A prayer is even more efficacious. Just a prayer for this journey. Um, and I think I'll probably end with kind of acknowledging the name of it, cultural Catholicism. Obviously, cultural Catholics, as they would be known, are individuals who grew up in the faith, fell away from the faith, but keep up the traditions, the cultural traditions of the faith. Um, and you think of like the Easter and Christmas group. That's the only time they come to mass, and they might, do certain. They just uphold certain aspects of the faith that actually don't involve the faith. And it was intentional for me to choose this name, to sort of reclaim that, or in an effort to renew that phrase, because truly, um, Catholicism is cultural, but in the exact opposite way that they celebrate it. the faith is all throughout the culture, and this is my attempt to shed light on the cultural Catholicism that exists in the world. So I'm grateful for anyone who gives their time. I also don't take that for granted, and I hope to use it well so that some knowledge is shared, which is fruitful for all of us, and that it helps us all to grow closer to our Lord Jesus Christ. And if even one soul, um, you know, I wouldn't, whether I know it or not, if even one soul grows closer to our Lord through this initiative, this project, then it is all worth it. And I know it will be worth it in heaven. So that is it. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy what is to come. God bless.